The Watership Down Podcast is intended for listeners who are familiar with the plot. There will be spoilers. This episode is scripted, narrated, recorded and edited by Newell Fisher. Hello, and welcome to the Watership Down Podcast episode 221, in which we will be going through chapter 12 of the graphic novel, Watership Down. But before we get to that iconic chapter, there are a couple of bits of burrow keeping. I'm hoping to update the podcast index soon, as we have now passed episode 220, and I will let you know when this has happened and where you can find the index. Meanwhile, the list of missing episodes on Spotify, which is my podcast platform, has expanded, very annoyingly. Spotify have accepted that all the missing episodes were wrongly taken down, but they are not getting them back up. I've started to threaten to migrate the podcast to another platform if there is not progress soon, as, frankly, Spotify are behaving as if that is what they want to happen to this podcast they have hosted for nearly 5 years. That's right. The podcast turns 5 years old on the 15th of March 2026, and this nonsense is casting a real shadow for me over what should be a happy anniversary. When I began this podcast, the excellent functionality of Anchor was what made it possible. Then Spotify took over Anchor and removed in-editing functionality, making it an upload-only platform. I was able to adapt to that at the time, but it made starting a new podcast a bit harder for anyone starting out, which was a real shame. And now they are hitting this niche podcast, and others it seems, with seemingly random invalid copyright strikes. As I said before, thank goodness for YouTube, where all the episodes are intact. The full list of missing episodes is 5, 6, 8, 13, 15, 20, 22, 23, 25, 30, 31, 32, 37, 46, 50, 101, 102, 109, 112, 113, 115, 133 and 135. That's 23 episodes out of 221, which is disgraceful. Anyway, enough of criticising others. I now need to take a few moments to criticise myself. The fiver of statistical exactitude. At the end of the first part of the story, The Journey, when I totalled up the numbers, my estimate was that the plot of the original novel had been compressed by 124 basic pages or 107 full pages. However, according to the indexes of my Kindle editions of both books, part 1 of the original novel is 104 pages long, while the same part of the graphic novel is 82 pages long, which meant that the actual compression had only been 22 basic pages, which meant that something had gone badly wrong with my number crunching. Very embarrassingly, I have now realised what that is. I have been diligently counting pages in my Kindle edition by counting the pages turned rather than pages in the index. And of course, pages turned in a Kindle book depends on the magnification of the page, which really was a schoolboy error. So, from now on, I will be counting full pages only using the index of my Kindle edition of Watership Down, as it doesn't split pages between chapters. And I will remember to look up occasionally to take in the wider statistical landscape rather than just focusing on the patch of number flavour in front of me. And I won't be bothering to distinguish between basic and full pages anymore. A full page of the novel will be counted as being a part of only one chapter from the graphic novel. At the end of a long statistical journey, the fiver of statistical exactitude has enabled me at last to see through a Kindle mist and spy far in the distance the rich pages of Watership Down, which is a long-winded way of saying I got it wrong. So, briefly, let us run up the scarp slope of truth and reveal the actual compression of the plot by chapter in part 1, which was: Chapter 1 took 2 pages more than the original. Chapter 2, 1 page more. Chapter 3, 1 page more. Chapter 4, no difference. Chapter 5, 5 pages more. Chapter 6, 2 pages more. Chapter 7, 2 pages more. Chapter 8, 3 pages less. Chapter 9, 3 pages less. Chapter 10, Hospitality, 26 pages less. Chapter 11, The Shining Wire, 2 pages more. Totalling an overall reduction of 17 pages from the original, which is close enough to the index difference of 22 pages not to worry me. Well, certainly not as much as a difference of 124 pages. I can only apologise for this appalling error of analysis, and the relevant episodes will remain as they are, as a testament to my inability to count to Hre. However, broadly speaking, these correct figures do, as I said originally, indicate the degree to which the Warren of the Snares has been compressed in this retelling of Watership Down, while the rest of Part 1 has broadly, it turns out, received equal weight as in the original. As I indicated in the last episode, I would have liked for the Warren of the Snares to have been dealt with in greater detail in the graphic novel. It would have been particularly interesting to see the shapes dealt with in this visual form. But I'm betting that detail has been sacrificed in that part of the story in order to allow more weight to be given to a later section. So, having set the record straight, let's return to the graphic novel as we arrive on Watership Down. The graphic novel, Chapter 12, Watership Down. Chapter 12 of the graphic novel has 10 pages and covers Chapter 18, Watership Down, from the original novel, which has 7 pages, meaning that this chapter takes 3 pages more than the original to tell the same part of the story. We see the rabbits running through woodland. This would be the woods near Ekinswell that we are told about at the start of the relevant chapter in the novel. Another shot of trees in dense woodland, then of rabbits running through a shallow ditch. Fiver looks around him. We see an old barn. Over the page, the rabbits are in the barn. Hazel asks Dandelion if everyone is there. Dandelion confirms. Another rabbit lies exhausted between them. It is probably Strawberry, who has never travelled before, let alone this far. It is later. We see the rabbits resting, their eyes closed. The dilapidated outside of the barn is shown. And 2 rats. Bigwig is asleep. Then, suddenly, he is very awake, sitting bolt upright. The 2 rats stare aggressively at the intruders. Bigwig shouts, "Rats," twice, then tells Silver and Buckthorn to stand their ground. Hazel tells Bigwig to hold the rats off, then he tells everyone else to get out. The putative trio of the group's owlslet end up cornered by the rats, 7 of which we can now see. Outside now, the group pour out through a gap in the door, followed by the trio who made a stand. Buckthorn has been bitten. Bigwig tells Hazel Silver and Buckthorn took the worst of the rats. Fiver says they have to keep moving. The smell of blood will attract a ill. He knows exactly where they are headed. As they run, he says they have to cross the field with the iron trees, an interesting turn of phrase given our discussion a few episodes ago about the portrayal of the pylons beneath Watership Down. Bigwig repeats the phrase questioningly. We see the group looking up at something. Hazel says it hums. Fiver says it won't harm them despite being a man thing. They can take cover beneath it. We see an iron tree, then the rabbits at its base looking up at it. Later, on the ground underneath it, Hazel is questioning something Fiver has just said. He wants them to climb the hill in front of them. Fiver confirms this and adds that they will find shelter on top. Bigwig says he can't even see the top. They look towards the hill. Hazel sums up their situation. They've been travelling for 2 days since leaving Cowslip's Warren. Bigwig is still recovering, Buckthorn is injured, and Strawberry is struggling to keep up. Despite being so large, he has never had to. Bigwig interrupts, saying Strawberry is soft. Bigwig says he will get him up the hill. Hazel says he won't have Strawberry being browbeaten. Strawberry will be fine if given a chance. He adds that, as they are all exhausted, he will go up the hill to see what it's like. Bigwig offers to join him, but Hazel says he also needs to rest. He will take Dandelion and Hawkbit. We are on the scarp slope of Watership Down. The 3 rabbits are making their way uphill. Hazel calls ahead to Dandelion, asking if he can see anything. Dandelion calls back that every slope they climb has another above it, and from the low perspective of a rabbit, this is exactly what climbing such a hill would be like. Hazel looks back, possibly to check on Buckthorn. We see a glimpse of an iron tree. Dandelion calls back that he can see the top of the ridge. We see a big sky ahead of them, filled with clouds. Hazel asks Frith if he is sending him to live among them. Dandelion reaches the top. He turns around. Hazel tells him to get down. He is sitting up in clear view for any ill. Dandelion responds with the famous line, "Come and look. You could see the whole world." In a full page picture, we see the whole world. That familiar view to anyone who knows the real Watership Down, with the 3 rabbits looking on. In front of them is the scarp slope. Beyond that, the thick belt of trees at the foot of the down. Then the large field with the iron tree visible that lines up with Nuthanger Lane, that is visible beyond the Kingsclear to Sidmonton Road. Beyond that, the landscape becomes a jumble of trees and fields rolling away north towards a cloudy sky. This is the same picture used at the beginning of the graphic novel, with the iron tree removed. Dandelion exclaims that they would have clear warning of any ill here, to which Hazel adds joyously that Frith must have made it all for them. In a half-page frame we see the view again, as the three rabbits look on in wonderment from the summit of Watership Down. Comparison with the book. In this retelling of the original, we are treated to an account of the journey from Cowslip's Warren that is only told in retrospect in the novel. This includes briefly the journey through the woods near Eccleswell, and in particular the attack by the rats in the barn, which is portrayed here visually, I believe, for the first time. The conversation under the pylon is slightly different from the original, in which the same equivalent conversation takes place in the far better cover of the belt of trees at the foot of Watership Down, rather than under an iron tree. Here, I guess, the location has been changed for visual impact. When the scouting party reaches the summit of Watership Down, Hawkbit is not missing, and Richard Adams' narration that they would have clear warning of any ill here is given to what looks like Dandelion, while Dandelion's line that Frith made it all for them seems to be given to Hazel, rather than him correcting Dandelion by adding that Fiver found it. Next time, the rabbits start to make a new warren on Watership Down, and there is a terrifying new arrival.